Merry meet to everyone. I've really started making some amazing new connections out there. So, big hello to everyone who has recently followed me. This is going to be a short but jam packed little video. Personally, I'm still in witching mode. We've just had a dark moon, which most people would probably know, especially if you're doing any occult work, that the dark moon is very different to the new moon in terms of the energies that are actually available to us. Hecate is my main goddess. It's a very special time for me, and I've spent the night connecting with her and doing witchy stuff. I will be doing a video a little bit later on the differences between the dark moon, the new moon, and how you can utilize those in with your occult work. Though I think anybody who is more on the occult path probably knows the differences, but it's also good if you're more aligned with spiritual currents or purely just somebody trying to get through the day to day and work on themselves, be a better person for themselves and the people around them. It applies to absolutely everybody, regardless of what you identify with. Learning to understand the opportunities and energetic themes that underpin different moon phases, solar phase, planetary alignments, all those sorts of things, they literally serve to be kind of like the clues as to what is happening both on the inside and in the external world. You've well and truly heard by now that everything happens within, happens without, and it's all reflections of. So if you can understand what is happening on the outside with something like, for example, the dark moon, and the specific themes that go along with that, then you're in a better position to understand the emotions and feelings and reactions that might arise within yourself and the people around you. So it's really good, even if you're not into the witchy stuff, to find out what those phases represent. And the moon affects absolutely everybody and everything on this planet and the planet herself. So definitely something to find out about. For me personally, I'm especially on a witchy high and excited about the dark moon, and I'm still in the midst of that. Our dark moon will actually continue for a little while because generally it's around 1.5 to 3.5 days prior to the new moon. The new moon and the dark moon are completely different, totally distinct energies and opportunities. If you're that way inclined and like to make the most of the energies around you, then it's a good idea to be aware of the opportunities that you have working in your favor. So it's been a massive week for me, as I'm sure with you. I keep waiting to post a video and say that the new energies that come in have been absolutely amazing and everything feels great and how exciting is this, but it's not going to be for a while, I'm really sorry to say. So my last energy update was more about the heaviness of the energies, and that I was personally even surprised by this after the full moon, which normally I'm energized from. I know a lot of people out in the witchy community have reversed and get drained from the full moon. That's fair enough, but personally I'm normally energized, so it actually really hit me on the full moon and I had a total shutdown day. But as I explained, it wasn't like an energy slump and drained. It was a system shutdown because of the reprieve that we had, but also when something like that happens, it is time for the system to reset. Some upgrades have come through that are so dramatic and different to the paradigm that this energy body is used to living in, that the actual biological system needs to shut down for a little while and reset so that it can recalibrate to the new energies that are coming in. And that's what we saw just after the full moon. So I wasn't on a high, but I understood. And at the same time, like I had posted about, we had these ideal conditions for what had been termed a clearing energy, but to me it came through loud and clear that it was more like a purging energy. Energies were forcefully being dragged out of the planet, and that would have been in the form of emotions, really deep stored traumas, things that we've repressed, stuff the body was holding onto that we aren't even conscious about. It was a time for all that to clear. So even if you weren't from a conscious mind going through, bringing up all that crap and processing through, your body itself was still doing some sort of processing. And I felt that as I do when something happens in the collective that is big enough, I'll feel it in my own body. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to tune into that feeling to understand why it happens. Sometimes it's just an instant thing. So that I instinctively knew. For me, it represented as like a churned up stomach after I'd already rested. It presented in meditation as a bit of a churned up stomach and just a yuck feeling. And I knew at that moment that it was to do with this purging that I had already heard about earlier in the morning. I'd also like to hear from anybody who is more of an intuitive being when it comes to these sorts of shifts, if they actually feel it in their body, if they've identified the difference between their own personal symptoms and experiencing symptoms from the collective. So, a lot of people in the spiritual and the witchy communities do understand this process that when we're sensitive to a certain level, we can experience these energies viscerally and not always by will. There is a bit of a division in the paths that there are certain people who go on to not want a bar of the collective energies, and that's totally understandable and hats off. There is also another range of people who are actually here to feel those energies and to help process through the collective energies that would otherwise be struggling if there wasn't a whole heap of us who were putting their hands up going, I'll feel it all. Like, this is how it works. Because there are so many of us that are actually allowing that energy and that process to flow through us, the collective doesn't have to experience it as dramatically. More for another video, of course. Since then, I've been waiting to jump on here with some exciting updates and say, guess what, guys? We're in for a good ride. I've yet to get that through. What I have gotten through, unfortunately, has taken on a little bit more of a somber tone. So much so that I've debated even recording this video. I am always highly conscious of what I am putting out there, understanding that we program our realities. I do not want to be actively responsible for programming more negativity into the collective experience than what has to be. But when you're on this path and when you channel these messages through, you come to a place of understanding that you have a responsibility to pass them on, and you passing them on doesn't have that programmed like effect, rather than the mass psychosis that can be created when something, for example, is announced via a popular media channel and then collectively everyone starts speaking about it, and then that thing manifests because we have collectively put energy to it. They are two different things. I think you also have to be a little bit in tune with these differences to understand or even think along those ways. Understand why when things like this come through that you take that little bit of a critical approach. I think that's really important too, even with witchcraft and spell work, is to always take a critical approach of, yes, there is surrender and trusting source, but there is also accountability and making sure that you're doing the right thing, that you're not creating a confirmation bias and actually manifesting that thing instead of it organically flowing through you, especially when you're on a channeling path. It's about having to learn how to create enough distance to stand back and allow things to channel through you, rather than to let your ego get in the way and create that confirmation bias and actually be manifesting the reality that you want, or rather the ego wants, which then goes on to create more karma loops for you. But I will say, your ego, best treated as an entity on its own, sitting right beside you, listening and reading every new piece of information that you are when it comes to spiritual and metaphysical stuff, and will store that up to use against you when it comes to things like this. So be careful of the ego trap, but we'll get to that. So some of the things that I had come through, and come through someone close to me as well who also does a lot of astral work. Disclaimer, this might be uncomfortable or triggering for some people to listen to. After specific astral encounters where we both were doing our energy work and having conversations with people, the particular theme that came through both of us was that of wounding, but particularly of the masculine dimensions. In this case, embodiments, as in it was wounding for a male figure. We both dealt with different ones, but a male figure, one directly to that male, and the other one because of an older male figure in their life. The theme of masculine wounding, whether it be experienced directly or by knock-on effect of someone close that has experienced that sort of trauma themselves and gone on to perpetuate that cycle. There was a big thing coming up of generational wounding on the masculine side. Now, the feminine side, there is a whole other story, and that is something to be addressed as well. But specifically, what was coming through for us, not just me, was about this masculine wounding. So that was deep and heavy enough to do a totally different post, but I know that somebody I'm speaking to right now is going to connect directly with that. And someone just started crying listening to that because it was the confirmation that someone else gets it. So I'm really sorry to trigger those emotions and traumas for you, but I know that this is a very important time to look at clearing them. So to those that have just connected directly to what I said, please reach out to me, DM me. This doesn't have to be a public conversation, but there are conversations that need to start happening, which is also timely and important for something else I had come through this week about things that are happening by the end of next week, where these sorts of unhealed traumas have the potential of being used, weaponized, along with a whole heap of other stuff, anything that's traumatic and stored within. Those were just themes that came through specifically. The end of next week, there's something happening, and also towards the end of April, like the last week of April, there's more stuff there as well. And as probably the most serious lot of updates that I got. I will delve into that a little later. And if you're involved with channeling or experience downloads, or have had something come through your readings that resonates with what I'm saying, please reach out to me as well. We have a lot of work to do. I also got through a time period towards the end of the year that is something to keep an eye on at this stage. Between September and October, there's something extra to look out for as well. So we have a lot coming this year, and I'm still waiting for that big, oh my God, this is amazing. But this year is all about purging. It's an action year, a doing year. There's lots of changes. The ascension is still going on, and it's going to ramp up with each of these things. Like I said before, nothing is really bad as much as it is a chance for spiritual advancement. So collectively, we're going to be given a lot of chances for spiritual advancement this year. It's just a little bit crappy how that's going to play out for some people. I've cut the recording short for this session because it really started just getting a bit too heavy, and there was a few more details of that to unpack. So I'm going to save that for later and end this on a little bit more positive of a note, and bringing us back to the fact that we are in this beautiful moon phase where it is a period of banishing and cleansing rituals, which kind of goes with the time of it. It's perfect for any purging and just getting rid of any of that heaviness that is weighing you down. That doesn't have to be having a conversation with other people or really dredging that stuff up and airing your laundry, so to speak. But often just the act of acknowledging something to yourself is enough for you to be able to validate and release it. And that's really the underlying theme of this video too. We all have a lot that we still need to honor and validate and accept and start to heal from. This was very much about healing. When I do a recording like this, I don't know necessarily what's about to come out of my mouth. So I was talking about things that happened over the week for me, basically. That week for me represented so many different things. I've only really touched on it, but I didn't forward plan out what I was actually going to share. In fact, a couple of the things that I did end up sharing, I thought I had already made the conscious choice to not really go down that path just yet. But as is the case, when I start recording an update video like this, much like the automatic writing process, I get into a flow state. Anybody who's done content creation who isn't reading off a script knows what I'm talking about, but especially anybody who is a little bit more intuitive and conscious of working in that flow state. So I didn't mean for this video to get quite as heavy, but because it came out, that means it's for a reason. That also tells me that it is going to be watched and received specifically by some people who need it. Me doing that is me doing my job, and we really have to, as empaths and intuitives and healers and channelers, we really have to honor the specific gifts that we've been given, because they're not self-serving gifts, they're to serve others. So channels like this are my platform to be able to serve others by passing on messages that come through me. This body is just a conduit, a vessel for the energy that I allow flow through me because I understand and respect that process. I don't have to like everything that does come out of my mouth, but I honor it by passing it on and knowing that it's going to reach the people that connect with it and resonate with it. And perhaps they don't need the specific message, but it gives them the wording that in the next couple of days they're going to bump into somebody who actually needs that message to come through them, and they're just going to have that snap moment in their mind where they instantly know why they watched that video a couple days ago, even though they weren't clicking with it, but something told them to sit with it, and then all of a sudden their paths across with someone who actually needs that information. That is how the universe works. That is how this beautiful game works, and we are all players. We all have our roles, and we all have to learn how to honor and play those to their fullest potential. So if that video did personally bring up anything heavy for you, please know that you do not have to face it on your own. And I haven't said all that to trigger you to then leave you to sit with it. I'm telling you right now, if you are affected by anything I've said, reach out, connect with me, send me a message. It doesn't have to be public, or connect with somebody in your support network. Connect with a friend or family member that you trust. There's helplines, there's plenty of resources out there. There is always somebody to listen to you, even if it doesn't feel like it. And I have been in a really dark place where I didn't think that there was anybody that would be able to listen to what it is I was going through. But that was wrong. And I'm telling you, you absolutely have people, and I want to hear from you. If you have anything to add to this video or some advice you want to share for people, please leave them in the comments, and make sure that you like, subscribe, and do all that good stuff so that the algorithm gods know that this video is important and more people get the chance to benefit from the information that I am sharing. So until next time, I hope you all have an amazing day and that you get to take advantage of the dark moon or new moon, and regardless of when you're watching it, know that there are people out there that care and are on board for all of the changes that we are facing, because we face them all together. So until next time, stay incredible and blessed be.